Alrighty gamers, how's it going? Daybreaker Rein here, coming at you through your video scope with just another gaming rant. And I bet you're thinking, Daybreaker, you do talk about Nintendo quite a bit in this video series, and well, unfortunately it just feels like Nintendo's kind of up to the most shit as of late. So that's kind of why these videos mainly focus on Nintendo stuff, because it just seems like they're the more relevant of the companies. Sony and Microsoft haven't really been doing anything out of the norm as of late. So the two things I want to talk about in this video in regards to Nintendo. One, I'm going to touch on briefly in the beginning and then focus kind of the last part of the second subject matter. So the first part I want to talk about is Niche Gamer posted an article talking about that the new Metroid game, Metroid Samus Returns on 3DS, is going to have content locked behind some of the amiibo figures. Now, I know what you're all thinking, and I think all of us are in agreement. I've been hearing that the backlash for this has been absolutely insane, that fans are not happy with this, that they're kind of just not dealing with Nintendo shit right now, which is to be expected because one of the features that was locked behind one of the amiibo figures was the ability to play the hard difficulty mode of the game. This isn't actually the first time that Nintendo has done this with a Metroid title specifically. I recall that in Metroid Prime, if you had a copy of Metroid Fusion and a Game Boy Advance, you could link up via the link cable to your GameCube and be able to unlock the Fusion suit in Prime, as well as being able to play the original NES Metroid. So this isn't necessarily unnormal or unheard of, but it's one of those things that the amiibo craze that hit has kind of been a big issue here in the US. I don't know how it is in other parts of the world. I just know that here in the US, it doesn't seem like it ever really truly got fixed. And the thing is that a lot of these amiibos that come out with specific functionality for specific titles, they go really quickly and the stock is not as expansive as most fans would probably want it to be. And that's kind of been the big drawback to, I think, the amiibos in general, is that Nintendo is just not putting out enough to warrant the demand for these specific amiibos. And that's really what's crappy about this particularly, because the amiibos that you need for this, I believe, are actually only in a pack together. It's a Metroid amiibo and a new Samus amiibo. And those two unlock specific stuff in the game, as well as the Zero Suit Samus and then the Smash Bros. Samus figures unlock stuff in the game. So, but some of those figures, even the Zero Suit Samus and the regular Samus for Smash Bros. Are still pretty pricey, even for just the loose figurine. So it kind of begs the question if this is really what Nintendo needs to be doing and why they're going so ham on the amiibo aspect of a lot of these games where they're hiding behind content. Now, if it's cosmetic content, I don't think a lot of people mind that too much. Some people might. I personally am of the opinion that I guess you just get a little bit extra when you actually buy the figure in that regard, but to lock behind an actual vital element of a game, such as a hard difficulty, I think that is a little bit bullshit. And apparently, again, like I said earlier, the fan backlash has apparently been pretty intense. So I don't know if Nintendo is going to rework this. I don't know if they really can. If that was the whole point of the amiibos to begin with, I don't know if there's going to be an extra means. I don't know if they're going to just, like, you know, make it available through DLC, as shitty as that sounds. I don't know if it's going to be like one of those things where they just retract it and make it unlockable via the game, because the hard mode, as far to my knowledge, the games that offered it in the Metroid series, it was unlockable just via beating the game at least one time on any percentage. So I really hope Nintendo does something that benefits everybody. But I recently found this out. I wasn't aware of this, but there are actually card versions of the amiibos being made on the more or less pirate market. So if you can't get a hold of the figure, I would definitely say that that's probably an avenue that a lot of people are going to be looking at just to unlock the in-game content. I've seen the little amiibo pads that are like all in one, that has every single amiibo on it, and you know, you can pick and choose whichever one you want it to run and things like that. So it's out there, and it's kind of funny that this entire craze, this entire amiibo, whatever you want to call it, has spawned such an extensive pirating market. It's actually kind of funny. So that kind of brings me into the next subject that I really want to cover real quick. I'm not going to spend too much time about this because there's really not much I can say in regards to what I haven't already said in my last video talking about the NES Mini console. So obviously a lot of people are excited for the Super Nintendo Mini console that Nintendo's producing. I, for one, am not. I was under the assumption that it was going to be something that was going to be made widely available when the NES Mini came out, but as we all became well aware of, that was just not the case, and they discontinued it before even making like a second or third shipment of those units to be set out into the world, and they were met with insane amounts of just swindlers buying up tons of the units and reselling them for huge profits on eBay. My last video talked about this. So I kind of posed a question about emulation, and main reason I'm going to talk more about this is because it's been known that the Super Nintendo Mini is going to have Star Fox 2 on it. I, for one, look at kind of like the HD collections that are out on the market nowadays, specifically the Silent Hill HD collection. Now, Silent Hill HD collection was Silent Hill 2 and 3, but they were not the original games. Like, I mean, they were to an extent, but they had to be so heavily altered because the builds that they had of those games were not the finalized versions that met the consumer market. They were like beta builds and stuff like that, and they literally had to build some of these games from the ground up. Kingdom Hearts HD Remix 1.5 was a prime example of that. Kingdom Hearts 1 had to literally be rebuilt from the ground up because they didn't have any of the original files. Now, I don't know how Nintendo is, but if all of these games that are being remastered and remade are any indication that a lot of the times they have to literally be rebuilt, I am begging the question, does Nintendo even still have the stuff for Star Fox 2 anywhere in their office, anywhere in a storage drive somewhere, storage closet? You see a lot of these like rare artifacts like the Nintendo PlayStation, for example, surfacing and somebody donating it to a museum. So you see things like that. So I can only assume that Nintendo is not keen to keeping their old equipment around. I mean, you even see some of those PSP dev stations popping up from time to time, people actually getting a hold of those. And so it kind of makes me wonder, is this Star Fox 2 literally just the ROM that's been circulating the internet for years now? Because Star Fox 2 is one of those weird instances where the game was literally almost done, but they pulled it because Star Fox 64 was right around the corner, and they were like, well, we're just going to restart the franchise via Star Fox 64, so we're not going to bother with a sequel to the Super Nintendo one, because technically we're retconning the Super Nintendo game and changing the story and making 64's story the canonical story. So I really have to question, are they just going to throw the ROM that's been available out there for years now onto this console, or by some happenstance the like 10% of the game that wasn't complete, are they actually going to finish and put in the game? I'm actually kind of interested to see what they do. Now, it's not enough to warrant me to go buy a console when literally, like I said, Star Fox 2 is out there. Star Fox 2 is playable into its entirety. As far as my knowledge, the whatever percentage that wasn't complete of the game probably wasn't as crucial as it needed to be in order for the game to work and run and function. I'm really just kind of indifferent about it, and it really, again, begs me personally the question to you, the viewer, you, the audience. What is the stipulation behind emulation? Why are people not more inclined to emulate, but more inclined to dish out money for a console of older games? Now, I also brought it up in my last video that I know retro collecting is not for everybody. And it's true, retro collecting is kind of a hard thing to get into, especially now because prices are just continually going up. Some prices fluctuate and go down, other ones go up. It's just a matter of when you catch specific games, but that's not everybody's gig. And I get it, because it is kind of an expensive hobby, I'm not going to lie. The small collection of games that I do have, I can tell you I spent a pretty penny on some of them. So I completely understand that people are not inclined to do the retro stuff, but why not just emulate? Pretty much anything nowadays can emulate games, like especially these older ones. I mean, you have methods like the Retro Freak, for example, which is a HDMI plug-in console, runs the actual cartridges but can also run ROMs. You have plug-in and play stuff like some of the at-game stuff has micro SD compatibility. I know that's specifically only for Genesis, and it may not be the best thing in the world, but that's out there too. And you also have things like EverDrives, for example. Like, let's say you want to buy a Super Nintendo and you want to buy all the Donkey Kong Country games. Well, Donkey Kong Country 1 ain't going to cost you very much, but 2 and 3 are going to cost you a pretty penny for a loose cartridge. Let's say that you want a bunch of rare titles for the Super Nintendo. You can get yourself something like an EverDrive, which is just a Super Nintendo cartridge with a micro SD card or an SD card slot on the front. You load up that bad boy with ROMs, and you can pretty much have the entire Super Nintendo library right there at your disposal, running off the original hardware. So EverDrives are a thing. Most smartphones nowadays run emulators. PSPs, you can flash mod them to run emulators. You can flash mod Wiis to run emulators. You can flash mod original Xboxes to run emulators. I guess I'm a bit dumbfounded, to be perfectly honest. Like, I completely understand that there is an appeal. I said it in the last video. There is a certain appeal to the plug-in and play aspect of these consoles being officially licensed by Nintendo, because up until this point there had only been bootleg consoles, and I brought this up before. I think I mentioned that Re-Res talks about a bunch of them. There was JonTron dedicated a whole episode to plug-in and play consoles. So I know that there is definitely a draw there in that aspect. It's more just the idea that I guess that emulation is just somehow still taboo to some people, or maybe they're a bit shy on the matter. They don't really know how to get it to work when it's really super simple. It's not at all hard. Like, it's an easy process for most things. Now, there are some that take a little bit of elbow grease. You know, emulators like Saturn, for example, or PS2, for example. Some emulators do require a bit of elbow grease and a little bit of legwork to get them to work properly, but most of the, you know, cartridge-based consoles work just fine. I mean, even N64, as far as it's come, I mean, it still has its flaws. Don't get me wrong, not everything's going to run flawlessly, but it still works for the most part. You can still play some of the pretty decent N64 games with no problems. I think that's where I'm just going to end it. I could go on and on and on about this, but let me know what you think. Floor is always open. I'm always open to discussion. You know, what's your take on the matter? Are you going to buy a Super Nintendo Mini just because of Star Fox 2? Are you buying it just because it's a Nintendo thing and you're a Nintendo fan? Are you not going to buy it and you're just going to jump on the emulators? Are you just against emulators? You know, whatever you guys want to talk about, I'd be happy to hear it. I know I haven't really been doing a whole lot of content, guys, and I apologize about that. I've just been all over the place with things going on in my personal life, but I hope to get back into the swing of things, so this was kind of like a way to kind of transition into that. Still have not watched Castlevania yet, guys. I am going to be watching that with a friend of mine, so he kind of wants me to help explain some of the Castlevania lore to him. So I thought that that'd actually be cool to kind of sit down and watch that with him. So once I get that out of the way, I will be doing a review on the Castlevania anime series. So stay tuned for that. I know I've been putting it off like crazy, but Netflix was being stupid. And that was kind of just like one of those things where I just didn't want to deal with it. But anyways, guys, floor is open to comments. Please, if by all means, I'd love to have some discussion. Like, dislike the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want. It's not necessary. You can follow me on Twitter for more updates when I do stuff like this or when I go and do live streams. You can subscribe to this channel and check out videos kind of like this in the Just Another Gaming Rant series or all my archives of my streams. Or you can check out my Let's Play channel, which is Daybreaker Rein's LP channel. It's very easy to find. Haven't been doing a lot on that, but I'm going to get back into that hopefully here very soon. Anyways, guys, as always, this has been Daybreaker Rein, and I will catch you all in the next one. Take it easy, guys.